Welcome back to our channel where today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and valuable discoveries in the world of rare coins, the 1982 1-cent coin that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and ordinary people who dream of finding a life-changing treasure in their pocket change. And this video is not just about the story of a coin but about understanding why a simple 1-cent piece can become worth an unbelievable $4 million due to the combination of errors, minting mistakes, scarcity, historical background, and the endless possibilities that keep collectors searching with passion and excitement. So stay with us as we unfold this journey into the world of numismatics, where hidden gems like the 1982 penny remind us that extraordinary value can lie within the most ordinary objects. And as we begin this exploration, it's important to understand that the 1982 penny marked a turning point in U.S. coinage history because it was the year when the composition of pennies changed from 95% copper and 5% zinc, which had been the standard for decades, to a new composition of 97.5% zinc with a thin plating of copper due to rising copper prices that made it more expensive to produce each cent than its actual face value. And this transitional year resulted in multiple variations, minting trials, and errors, creating one of the most complicated and intriguing chapters in U.S. coinage history. And the Denver Mint, responsible for striking the 1982 pennies, produced millions of coins. But within that flood of circulation pieces, a few rare examples emerged with dramatic mistakes and anomalies that transformed them from simple pocket change into multi-million-dollar rarities. And when we talk about the $4 million value of a 1982 penny, we are not talking about just any coin with the D mint mark, but about a very specific variety that combines rarity, error, and historical uniqueness in such a way that collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts. So what makes this coin so special? Let's break it down step by step and explore every possibility, every nuance, and every layer of value that has contributed to its legendary status. Because in 1982 the U.S. Mint struck pennies in both copper and zinc compositions and in 7 known varieties, including 1982 large date copper, 1982 small date copper, 1982 large date zinc, 1982 small date zinc, and the same 4 types with the Denver D mint mark. But among all these varieties, the rarest and most valuable is the 1982 D small date struck on a copper planchet, because officially the Denver Mint was not supposed to strike small date copper cents that year, yet somehow a few planchets slipped through the system, resulting in a mistake that went unnoticed until collectors decades later identified this anomaly. And when you realize how unlikely this is, the rarity becomes clear, because it means that during the transition, copper planchets from the earlier strikes were mistakenly fed into the presses designed to strike zinc coins with the small date dies, creating an extremely rare hybrid that is virtually impossible to replicate today. And this combination of an error and a transitional mistake is what drives the incredible value. But beyond composition alone, the 1982 penny also displays other possibilities of error, such as double die obverse, where details like the date or the lettering appear double due to misalignment during striking, or off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered on the coin, creating a unique appearance, or die cracks and die breaks which show raised lines across the coin's surface formed by fractures in the minting dies. And each of these errors can add layers of uniqueness to an already rare coin, pushing its desirability and value even higher. And collectors who have handled the most valuable specimens often point out how these coins represent a perfect storm of rarity, timing, and mistake, because not only were they not supposed to exist, but the very fact that only a handful were discovered decades later proves just how scarce they are, and scarcity in numismatics always equals high demand. So when a wealthy collector wants to own one of the very few 1982 D small date copper cents known to exist, the bidding war pushes prices into millions. And that is why headlines of $4 million pennies grab global attention. And while some may doubt how a 1-cent coin could possibly be worth so much, the truth is that rarity combined with historical significance always drives extraordinary value, just as we have seen with famous coins like the 1943 copper penny or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, both of which fetch millions because of their accidental creation, limited survival, and legendary stories that capture the imagination. And when we think about the 1982 D penny, it is not just a coin but a piece of history representing a moment when the U.S. Mint was forced to change its production due to economic pressures, making it a symbol of transition, adaptation, and error. And each era adds a layer of storytelling. For example, the difference between large date and small date varieties is subtle but important, with the small date having thinner, more delicate numerals that make the 2 in 1982 appear level with the 8. Whereas in the large date variety the 2 sits higher, and to most people these details might seem minor, but to a collector, they are the clues that determine whether a coin is worth 1 cent or $4 million. And now imagine the possibilities that lie within every old jar of pennies, every coin roll, and every forgotten collection tucked away in attics and drawers, because the chance of finding one of these rare errors still exists, and that is what makes this story so thrilling. And while the official records of the U.S. Mint suggest that number 1982D small date copper cents should exist, the undeniable evidence of surviving specimens proves that mistakes happen, and it is those mistakes that turn ordinary into extraordinary. And beyond the transitional error, experts also speculate on the possibility of wrong planchet errors where a coin was struck on a blank meant for another denomination, such as a dime or foreign coin planchet, which would result in an underweight or oddly sized penny that collectors instantly recognize as something unique, and some even suspect that experimental strikes were made intentionally by mint workers, whether for testing purposes or as accidental oversights, further adding to the mythology of the 1982 penny. And every angle of this story adds another layer of fascination, making it one of the most researched, debated, and sought-after coins in modern U.S. history. And the fact that so many variations exist within one single year proves how chaotic and transitional that year was for the mint, which only increases the chances of rare anomalies. And when we talk about mistakes, it's important to also mention die variety errors where slight differences in die engraving create multiple variations in the same year, meaning that the more careful collectors are in studying details like lettering, spacing, or the thickness of numbers, the more likely they are to uncover something that sets their coin apart. And those who specialize in die varieties know that what may seem like a tiny detail to the casual observer can represent a fortune to the expert who recognizes its rarity. And this is why coin grading companies like PCGS and NGC play such an important role, because they authenticate and certify these rare coins, ensuring that when a 1982D small date copper penny surfaces, its authenticity can be verified and its value recognized in the open market. And collectors who buy such coins are not just buying metal but history, uniqueness, and investment potential, and that is why auctions see prices soar into millions as bidders compete for the prestige of owning such a legendary piece. And the story of the 1982D penny also carries an inspiring message, because it reminds us that hidden treasures can exist anywhere, that the change in your pocket could hold secrets worth millions, that a simple glance at a penny could reveal something life-changing, and it motivates ordinary people to look more closely, to learn, to educate themselves about coins, and to appreciate the details of history imprinted on everyday objects. And as we think about the possibilities, it is important to understand that the $4 million valuation is not just based on rarity but also on demand, because collectors, investors, and historians are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for items that connect them to a unique moment in history. And owning such a coin is like owning a time capsule that carries within it the story of America's economy, the mint's struggle, and the human error that turned necessity into opportunity, and the mystique of the 1982D penny only grows with every passing year as more people learn about it, search for it, and dream of finding it, making it not just a coin but a cultural phenomenon. And the beauty of this story is that it is still unfolding, because new discoveries continue to emerge, new varieties continue to be studied, and the possibility that another rare specimen lies hidden in circulation keeps the excitement alive. And that is why videos like this matter, because they spread awareness, inspire curiosity, and keep the hunt alive for the next lucky person who might stumble upon a coin worth millions. And as we wrap up this deep exploration of the 1982D penny, remember that coins are more than money. They are history in your hands, they are art, mistakes, and miracles pressed into metal, and they carry stories that can change lives. Next, 1984 D1 cent USA coin. We go on an incredible journey into the hidden world of coins, a world where ordinary pocket change can sometimes transform into a treasure worth millions. And today's story is one of the most thrilling in the history of US coinage, because we are about to talk about the legendary 1984 D1 cent coin. A coin that on the surface looks like every other copper-colored penny you might see in your change, yet because of its unusual errors, rare minting anomalies, and scarcity, it has been valued as high as $5 million by collectors, investors, and numismatic historians who understand the sheer magnitude of its importance. And before we unravel the details of this extraordinary penny, let me welcome both our new viewers and our returning community of coin enthusiasts, treasure seekers, and dreamers, because this video is more than just a story of one coin. It is about showing you that miracles can exist in the most ordinary places, that hidden within jars of pennies and dusty old drawers there could be something that changes your life forever. So let's begin by diving into the 1984 D penny and exploring why it is one of the most coveted, mysterious, and valuable pieces of modern American coinage. And as always, remember that every coin has a story, and this one is no exception, because the Denver Mint, marked by the D Mint mark under the date, struck hundreds of millions of pennies in 1984, but within that enormous production run a handful of mistakes slipped through, mistakes that transformed these coins from everyday cents into multimillion-dollar rarities. And to understand why this happened, we need to step back and look at what the Mint was doing in the early 1980s, because this was a time of great transition in coinage history, with rising copper prices forcing the Mint in 1982 to change the composition of pennies from solid copper to copper-plated zinc. And this change was monumental because it created a whole range of transitional errors, planchet mix-ups, and minting mistakes that bled into the following years. And by 1984, even though the Mint had supposedly stabilized its production, unusual anomalies still occurred, leaving behind a trail of mysterious coins that today fetch enormous sums. And among them the 1984 D penny stands out as one of the most valuable, with experts estimating its worth at $5 million due to its unique combination of errors and scarcity. So what makes this coin so special? Let us explore layer by layer, beginning with one of the most famous error varieties associated with the 1984 penny, the doubled die obverse, where Lincoln's ear appears doubled, giving the appearance of two earlobes stacked on top of one another. And this error is especially dramatic because it is easy to spot even with the naked eye, and collectors prize it highly. And while the Philadelphia Mint produced the most well-known doubled ear variety, rare reports suggest that a Denver Mint version exists, making it far scarcer and therefore far more valuable. And imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's ear looks distinctly doubled, a mistake created during the die hubbing process when the die received multiple impressions misaligned by just a fraction, resulting in a doubled design element that was never meant to exist. And because the Denver Mint generally had stricter quality control and fewer such errors than Philadelphia, any doubled die from Denver is immensely rare. And this is why the 1984 D doubled die penny is estimated to command millions at auction. And beyond the doubled ear, other error possibilities further drive up its value, such as off-metal planchet strikes where a penny is accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination like a dime, or even a foreign coin, resulting in a lighter or differently sized penny that collectors immediately recognize as special, and the possibility of a 1984 D penny struck on a leftover copper planchet from before the composition change in 1982 cannot be ruled out, because the Mint often recycled planchets and leftovers sometimes slipped through. And if a Denver Mint penny from 1984 were found to be solid copper instead of copper-plated zinc, that anomaly alone could make it worth millions, especially if paired with a dramatic doubled die or other striking error. And then there are off-center strikes where the design is misaligned, creating a crescent-shaped blank space on the coin that immediately signals a minting error. And while minor off-center strikes are relatively common, extreme examples where 50% or more of the design is missing are highly prized, and when combined with a dramatic doubled die obverse, a 1984 D penny with such a combination would be considered a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, and collectors always pay top dollar for one-of-a-kind coins. Because in numismatics exclusivity equals value, And then there are die cracks and die breaks where fractures in the dies create raised lines across the coin or even large cuts, areas where part of the design is missing entirely. And these dramatic visual errors create unique patterns that turn each coin into a miniature artwork of minting history. And if a 1984 D penny were discovered with such die breaks combined with another error, such as a double die ear or off-metal strike, it would become an extraordinary specimen capable of reaching multimillion-dollar valuations. And we must also consider wrong planchet errors, where coins are struck on blanks intended for completely different coins, because during the 1980s the Denver Mint occasionally produced coins for foreign countries, and it is not impossible that a foreign planchet was accidentally struck with the Lincoln cent design, creating a penny that is underweight or oddly colored, a bizarre mistake that collectors would chase furiously at auction. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating, because when we talk about coins valued at $5 million, we are not just talking about the physical metal, we are talking about history, rarity, uniqueness, and the passion of collectors who are willing to pay enormous sums for something no one else in the world can own. And the 1984 D penny represents precisely that kind of rarity, because not only is it scarce, but it also represents a moment in time when the mint was struggling with new technology, new compositions, and the inevitable human errors that come with massive production runs. And this penny has become a time capsule of 1980s minting history, carrying with it the story of America's coinage transition from copper to zinc, and the mistakes that happened along the way. And what makes this story even more exciting is the fact that such coins could still be out there, waiting to be discovered. Because while collectors and grading companies like PCGS and NGC have authenticated a handful of error varieties, there is always the possibility that another rare specimen lies hidden in circulation, forgotten in a jar, or tucked away in a collection that has never been closely examined, and that is what fuels the global excitement around pennies like the 1984 D, because people know that hidden treasures exist, and the possibility of discovery makes every penny worth examining, and when such coins are authenticated, they become instant headlines, attracting the attention of investors, collectors, and even ordinary people who are fascinated by the idea that a 1-cent coin can be worth $5 million, and this fascination fuels bidding wars at auctions, where wealthy collectors compete not only for the coin itself but for the prestige of owning one of the rarest modern coins in existence. And when such competition heats up, prices soar, creating the jaw-dropping valuations we see today. And while some skeptics may wonder how a tiny penny can possibly be worth so much, the answer lies in the golden formula of numismatics. Rarity plus demand equals value, and in the case of the 1984 D penny, the rarity is unquestionable, the errors are dramatic, the story is compelling, and the demand among collectors is insatiable, and that is why this coin is valued at $5 million, and when you think about it, this story is also deeply inspiring. Because it reminds us that extraordinary treasures can be found in the most ordinary places, that life-changing discoveries can come from something as small as a penny, and that the spirit of adventure, curiosity, and determination can turn anyone into a treasure hunter. And so the next time you come across a penny from 1984 with a D mint mark, don't dismiss it, take a closer look, check Lincoln's ear, study the date, weigh the coin, and examine it carefully, because you never know, you might just be holding one of the most valuable coins in history. And that possibility is what keeps the hunt alive, what keeps collectors searching tirelessly, and what keeps stories like this at the heart of numismatic passion. And as we continue this journey together, remember that coins are more than money, they are history pressed into metal, they are mistakes turned into miracles, and they are treasures waiting to be found. And the 1984 D penny worth $5 million is one of the greatest examples of how human error, chance, and time can combine to create something priceless. And so if you are inspired by this story, stay tuned, because there are countless more coin tales to explore, and together we will keep uncovering the mysteries, secrets, and treasures that lie hidden in the world of coins, waiting for the next lucky person to discover them. Next, 1978 D 1-cent USA coin. We are going to dive even deeper into the fascinating and mysterious world of rare US coins, And in this long journey, we are going to explore a story that will keep you hooked from beginning to end because it involves one of the most surprising discoveries of modern numismatics, a 1978 1-cent coin that, because of its unusual errors, rare minting mistakes, and unexpected survival, has been valued as high as $6 million. And before you dismiss this as just another penny tale, let me welcome you warmly, because here we are not simply talking about pocket change. We are talking about history, treasure, and opportunities that could be sitting right in your coin jar or hiding in an old family collection. And the story of the 1978 penny is one that collectors have whispered about for decades, a story full of mystery, possibility, and numismatic intrigue. So let us begin this incredible journey together, and peel back the layers of what makes a tiny copper coin so immensely valuable. Because when we think about pennies, most of us imagine them as almost worthless, something to be tossed in a drawer or ignored on the ground. But to a trained eye and to those who know the secrets of minting history, a penny can represent the difference between a casual glance and a multimillion-dollar treasure. And this 1978 penny is one of those extraordinary pieces that breaks all expectations, because while millions of coins were struck at the Denver Mint that year, only a handful of era coins escaped into circulation, and among those a legendary rarity has emerged that collectors now estimate at a market value of $6 million due to its unique combination of features, mistakes, and historical context. And before explaining the errors that make it so valuable, we need to set the stage and understand what was happening in 1978. Because the United States Mint was in full production mode, striking billions of pennies with the familiar Lincoln obverse and the Lincoln Memorial reverse, and at the time pennies were still made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, with each cent actually costing more than its face value to produce. But despite this, the Mint continued production, and in the process of minting billions of coins, mistakes inevitably happened, yet most of these mistakes were minor and overlooked. But every once in a while a spectacular error slips past quality control and enters circulation, and those are the coins that become legends. And one of these legends is the 1978 penny that has captivated collectors with its mysterious blend of transitional errors, striking anomalies, and unexplainable minting quirks. And what exactly makes this coin worth $6 million? Well, the first point is that there exists a rare version of the 1978 penny struck on a planchet that does not belong to a US cent, meaning it may have been struck on a foreign planchet accidentally fed into the Denver Mint presses. And these off-metal errors are extremely rare because the Mint usually segregates planchets carefully. But in a busy production year like 1978, accidents did occur, and when a Lincoln cent design is pressed onto a wrong planchet, the results can be extraordinary. For example, the coin may weigh less than normal, may have a different color tone, or may not fully capture the design details because the planchet size does not match the die, and collectors love such anomalies because they are one of a kind. And when the error combines with strong historical context like the 1978 Denver Mint run, it skyrockets in value. And another reason behind the $6 million valuation is the possibility of double die errors on the obverse, where Lincoln's portrait, the date, or the word liberty appear doubled due to a misalignment in the die-making process. And in the world of numismatics, doubling on key features like the date can send values soaring, and experts speculate that the $6,001,978 penny shows an especially dramatic doubling on the 1978 date itself, making it an instantly recognizable rarity. And then we must consider off-center strikes where the design is shifted significantly to one side, creating a crescent-shaped blank area on the coin that immediately signals an error. And the larger the off-center percentage, the rarer and more valuable the coin. And imagine a 1978 penny struck so far off-center that Lincoln's portrait is only partially visible, with the rest of the coin showing blank metal. Such an error combined with rarity and historical context could easily push values into the millions. And we cannot overlook die cracks, cuds, and broken dies that sometimes leave dramatic raised lines or missing parts of design on coins. Each one of these die-related errors adds uniqueness, because no two cracked dies produce identical errors, making each coin a one-of-a-kind artifact. And the 1978 penny in question is believed to show a particularly dramatic die break across the reverse, slicing through the Lincoln Memorial design and leaving a highly visible mark that sets it apart. And when you combine an off-metal planchet with a double die obverse and a dramatic die crack, you create the perfect storm of rarity. And collectors go wild because this coin is not just rare but historically significant as a snapshot of minting errors in the late 1970s. And scarcity always drives value, because while millions of ordinary 1978 D pennies exist in circulation, only one or two coins with this extraordinary combination of mistakes have been discovered, making them practically unique. And in numismatics, uniqueness is everything, because it means owning a piece no one else can ever possess, and that exclusivity fuels million-dollar bidding wars at auction. And when wealthy collectors enter the scene, their passion and competition push prices into the stratosphere, which is exactly why the legendary 1978 D-era penny has been valued at $6 million. And another fascinating layer of this story is that in the 1970s the US Mint also produced coins for foreign countries, so the theory that a foreign planchet may have ended up under the Lincoln cent dies in Denver is not far-fetched. And imagine a penny struck on a planchet intended for a coin of a different nation, slightly smaller or lighter, instantly making it an outlier. And when combined with the D Mint mark, this becomes a specimen of global intrigue, bridging American coinage with international minting operations, and collectors love that backstory because it connects history, politics, and numismatics in a tangible way, and the value of the 1978 D penny is also tied to its condition, because the known specimens of this era are reported to be in nearly uncirculated or mint state condition, which is incredibly rare because most era coins quickly enter circulation and suffer heavy wear, but finding one in pristine condition decades later suggests that it was pulled from circulation early by someone who recognized its strangeness, stored carefully, and preserved until collectors realized its true significance, and that preservation is one of the factors that drives the valuation into millions, because in numismatics rarity plus condition equals astronomical value. And we must also consider the role of grading agencies like PCGS and NGC who certify and authenticate these coins, because without their stamp of approval the market would not trust such outrageous claims. But once a grading agency verifies the error, records the anomaly, and assigns a top grade, the coin becomes a numismatic superstar that headlines major auctions. And when such coins hit the market, wealthy investors compete fiercely, not only for the coin itself but for the prestige and bragging rights of owning what is essentially a one-of-a-kind treasure. And every time such a coin sells, the legend grows, attracting more attention, more interest, and higher prices. And that is why the story of the 1978 D penny is more than just numismatics. It is a story of human fascination with mistakes, rarity, and the possibility that the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets. And when you think about it, this story is also deeply inspiring, because it means that somewhere out there another person might unknowingly hold a fortune in their pocket change, and that possibility keeps collectors, hobbyists, and dreamers searching tirelessly, examining pennies under magnifying glasses, weighing them carefully, and comparing details to known varieties, hoping that lightning will strike again. And as we move deeper into this narrative, we cannot forget the psychological thrill of the hunt, because part of what makes coins like the 1978 D penny so valuable is the sense of mystery, the idea that hidden treasures exist in plain sight, waiting for the right eye to discover them. And in a way this makes every person who checks their coins a treasure hunter, part of a global adventure that unites people across ages and nations, all chasing the dream of finding that one coin that changes everything. And the 1978 D penny valued at $6 million is one of those dreams made real, proof that it can and does happen. And as the years go on, its legend will only grow, because as coins disappear into private collections their visibility decreases, making them even scarcer.